I remember the evidence we were presented in this committee back in 2002 in terms of North Korea becoming the world's best counterfeiter of $100 bills, using the same type of equipment and presses that we use on our own currency. And they presented us also, the U.S. had evidence that the distribution to criminal groups, typically occurring through senior officers at the embassies and through state trading companies, was routine and went all the way up to the top of the regime. And so, as it was called, this super note conspiracy led to the concept of prosecuting some of these state officials with the idea that we could freeze the funds. Under a section of the Patriot Act, Section 311, and that in fact was done. In August of 2005, arrests were made. The Justice Department was instructed by the NSC, however, to in effect bury the evidence and keep it out of court, mask the role of the North Korean government. Why? We didn't want to embarrass it. We didn't want to embarrass it. We wanted to negotiate with North Korea. And I just have a problem with the fact that the State Department took steps to eliminate the working group, the North Korean working group, and the North Korea Activities Group that developed this strategy. Because the strategy cut off hard currency into North Korea, right? And the ambassador at the time was convinced that pressure would get in the way of dialogue. We don't want to get in the way of a dialogue. But frankly, it's the only thing that I've seen effective. And then last June, traveling to South Korea, the Secretary of State began to articulate what she called new measures to target North Korea's illicit activity. I thought this was a good idea. They were going to go after cigarettes, drugs, again, counterfeit currency. And Mr. Newcomb, you were deputy of the group in the last administration that tackled this. And in a new report, David Asher, your partner on this, details a very robust approach to confronting North Korea on its illegal gains. It was state and treasury, but also the FBI and AFT on the cigarettes and the Secret Service on counterfeiting. Something like a dozen government agencies were involved. It had high-level support until, again, it was undercut by the diplomats. In your view, what's going on here? Is the administration even close to reconsidering this? And I'm not beating up on this administration. It's been every administration that is held back on the approach of freezing these funds, of doing what we temporarily were able to do with Banco Delta Asia and cut off the hard currency. And the people that I know that were close to this say that that brought a tremendous amount of pressure on this regime, but it was amazing how much pressure came the other direction to lift those sanctions. Could you give me your views?
Yes, sir. I think the circumstances and the developments are much as you described at the time. The August 2005 arrests were a result of the well-publicized Smoking Dragon and Royal Charm sting operations that were run by the FBI with a lot of help from Secret Service and others. They had something like 89 indictments, and when it came time to publish the indictments, they dropped the original language and substituted Country 1 and Country 2, which were China and North Korea, as later revealed. There were other developments as well. The U.S. sought to arrest Sean Garland, an IRA terrorist, for his involvement in distributing Supernote. So there was a very aggressive law enforcement program underway. We had achieved notable success cooperating on this with a number of foreign governments. They were starting to take steps on export controls that they had earlier resisted. We had great cooperation internationally among police agencies. And to get that, you have to have high-level political support, the diplomatic support that encourages police officers that are not accustomed necessarily to working with one another to go that extra mile and establish relationships. And to be quite frank, the evidence that we used to convince folks about the seriousness of the problem mostly came out of police reporting because of the suspicion a lot of intelligence reporting was held at the time.